People often think betrayal announces itself. They imagine shouting, slammed doors, and shattered glass. But the most devastating betrayals arrive softly. They slip into your life wearing familiar faces, speaking in calm voices, hiding behind polite smiles. Mine came wrapped in silk napkins, candlelight, and a language my husband never thought I'd understand. For years, I believed my marriage was solid. Not passionate, not exciting, but stable. Predictable. Safe. Now I know that stability can be the most dangerous illusion of all. My name is Naomi Carter, and for nearly 13 years, I was married to a man named Ethan Carter. Ethan liked control. He wouldn't have used that word. He would have said organized, strategic, efficient. But control was his oxygen. He thrived on it over meetings, schedules, finances, and eventually over me. Ethan worked as a senior operations director at a rapidly expanding technology firm headquartered in Northern California. He wore tailored suits and spoke in crisp bullet points. He lived for performance metrics, quarterly reviews, and the quiet power that came from being indispensable. People admired him. I helped him become that man. When we first met, Ethan was ambitious but uncertain. Brilliant, yes, but insecure. I was the one who encouraged him to apply for the promotion he thought he wouldn't get. I rewrote his resumes, practiced interview answers with him at midnight, listened when he doubted himself. Back then, he listened to me too. I worked in marketing, creative strategy, brand development, campaign planning. I loved it. I loved storytelling, understanding human behavior, shaping how messages landed. I was good at it. But as Ethan climbed higher, my achievements grew smaller in his eyes. We bought a modern townhouse in Los Altos, white walls, minimalist furniture, everything carefully curated to look successful without revealing anything personal. Friends complimented it. I always felt like a guest inside my own house. Over time, Ethan stopped asking my opinion. Instead, he informed me. We're going to dinner with my boss. We're investing in this fund. You should wear something more conservative. When I pushed back, even gently, he'd smile indulgently. Trust me, he'd say. I handle things like this for a living. I told myself this was what marriage looked like after a decade. That passion faded. That comfort replaced curiosity. But some nights, when Ethan stayed late at the office or locked himself in the study, I felt unbearably alone. 18 months before everything collapsed, I did something quietly rebellious. It was past midnight. I couldn't sleep. Ethan lay beside me, scrolling through work emails even in the dark, his screen lighting up his focused expression. I turned away and opened my phone. That's when I saw it. Learn Japanese free trial. The sight of it startled me. In college, I had taken 2 semesters of Japanese. Not because it was useful, but because it fascinated me. The structure. The restraint. The layers of meaning hidden beneath politeness. But after marriage, practicality replaced passion. That night, without thinking too much, I downloaded the app. Just to see if I remembered anything. I did. More than I expected. Within days, I was hooked. Japanese became my secret refuge. My quiet rebellion. My proof that I was still capable of growth. While Ethan worked late or watched financial news, I sat at the kitchen table with earbuds in, learning. I listened to podcasts, joined virtual study groups, hired tutors across time zones. I never told him. Not because I was hiding, but because I had learned what happened when I shared things he didn't value. Years earlier, I'd mentioned wanting to take a writing workshop. Ethan laughed lightly. You already write emails all day. That's enough. And honestly, when would you have time? That laugh taught me something important. So Japanese stayed mine. And I was good at it. By the time a year passed, I could follow conversations easily. Business conversations. Nuanced discussions. I could read contracts. Watch films without subtitles. Hold polite, formal exchanges effortlessly. It felt like reclaiming myself piece by piece. Then came the night that changed everything. One evening in early October, Ethan came home unusually early. He was energized. Almost giddy. Big news, he said, loosening his tie. We're finalizing a partnership with a Japanese firm. This could push me into VP territory. I smiled, supportive as always. Their senior executive is flying in next week, he continued. I'm hosting him for dinner. Then he paused. You're coming. I looked up. Me? Yes. He asked if I was married. Family stability matters to them. It's good optics. Good optics. You'll just need to look polished, smile, and let me handle the conversation, Ethan added casually. My stomach tightened. What restaurant? I asked. Hashiro. Thursday. 7 p.m. Wear the navy dress. Conservative. Elegant. Then, almost as an afterthought. Don't worry, you won't understand anything. He barely speaks English. I'll be speaking Japanese the entire time. He smiled with pride. He never asked if I spoke the language. Why would he? That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart racing. Something inside me whispered, listen carefully. The days leading up to the dinner felt unreal, as though time itself had slowed to watch what I didn't yet fully understand was inevitable. I moved through my routines on autopilot, work, groceries, polite conversations, while something inside me sharpened, alert and watchful. Every smile Ethan gave me felt rehearsed. Every affectionate gesture felt like a performance meant for an audience that no longer existed. On Wednesday night, I stood in front of our bedroom mirror holding the navy dress Ethan had chosen. It was elegant, modest, safe, the kind of dress that said wife without saying woman. I studied my reflection longer than usual. I didn't look unhappy. I looked composed, competent, invisible. That night, I reviewed my Japanese one last time, not vocabulary this time, but tone. Business formality. Humility markers. Subtext. I reminded myself that what mattered most wasn't speaking. It was listening. Thursday evening arrived with surgical precision. Ethan drove. He always did. He liked control behind the wheel, his hands steady, his eyes forward, the radio tuned to financial news murmuring softly between us. You nervous? He asked casually. No, I said truthfully. Just tired. He nodded absently. Good. Just stay relaxed. Let me handle things. The restaurant sat tucked behind a row of understated buildings in downtown San Francisco, no neon sign, no loud entrance. Only a discreet plaque and a door that opened into silence. Hashiro was the kind of place executives chose when they wanted to impress without appearing to try. We arrived early. Ethan checked his reflection in the darkened glass, adjusted his tie, smoothed his jacket. Remember, he said quietly as we stepped inside, pleasant, brief, polished. I nodded. The hostess led us to a private table, low lighting, soft wood, minimalist elegance. A moment later, Mr. Kenji Arai stood to greet us. He was older than Ethan, mid-50s, maybe, but carried himself with a calm authority that didn't need to announce itself. Silver-rimmed glasses. Impeccable suit. Eyes that noticed everything. They exchanged greetings in Japanese. Perfectly executed. Formal. Polite. I smiled, lowered my gaze slightly, and allowed Ethan to pull out my chair. For the first few minutes, conversation stayed in English, safe, superficial territory. Compliments about the restaurant. Comments about the city. The weather. Mr. Arai's English was careful but solid. Better than Ethan had implied. Then menus arrived. And, just like that, they switched to Japanese. The transition was seamless. Natural. And I understood every word. At first, it was strictly business. Market expansion. Infrastructure. Projected revenue streams. Ethan spoke confidently, fluently. I had to admit, his Japanese was good. Not elegant, but effective. Assertive. I sipped my water. Smiled when appropriate. Played my role. Then Mr. Arai glanced toward me. He said something politely curious in Japanese, asking what I did professionally. I felt a brief spark of anticipation. But Ethan answered before I could even inhale. Oh, my wife works in marketing, he said lightly. But it's a small firm. Nothing demanding. Mostly something to keep her occupied. Keep her occupied. She takes care of our home, he added, waving the idea away with a smile. I kept my expression neutral. Inside, something twisted, sharp, and painful. I had managed teams. Led campaigns. negotiated contracts. But in Ethan's version of my life, I was a hobbyist. Mr. Arai nodded politely. He didn't ask further questions. The food arrived in stages, beautifully plated, deliberate. As the evening progressed, Ethan relaxed. The wine flowed. His voice grew louder. His posture looser. And that's when the truth began to leak out. He spoke about projects, ones I knew he hadn't led. He claimed successes that belonged to entire teams. He subtly diminished colleagues, painting himself as the indispensable core of every operation. It wasn't outright lying. It was inflation. And then, slowly, casually, he spoke about me again. My wife doesn't really understand the corporate world. Ethan laughed in Japanese. She prefers a simpler life. I handle the finances, the long-term planning. He gestured vaguely in my direction. She's supportive. Low maintenance. It works well for me. My fingers tightened around my glass. Mr. Arai responded with a polite sound, non-committal. His eyes flicked to me briefly, searching. Then Ethan said something that made my blood freeze. I've been restructuring some assets, he said casually. Preparing for future flexibility. Offshore accounts. My heart began to pound. Our joint accounts were restrictive, Ethan continued. This gives me freedom if my career requires relocation or sudden decisions. Freedom. From me. I sat there smiling faintly while my husband confessed, without shame, that he was moving money behind my back. Then came the moment that split my life cleanly in two. Mr. Arai mentioned stress, asked how Ethan balanced such a demanding career. Ethan laughed. I have outlets, he said. There's someone at work. Maya. She understands ambition. The name hit like a physical blow. We've been seeing each other for months, Ethan continued. My wife has no idea. Honestly, it's been good for me. I felt numb. Maya is sharp, he added. She gets strategy. Growth. Not like coming home to someone whose biggest concern is dinner plans. I stopped breathing. For a moment, the restaurant seemed impossibly quiet. Mr. Arai shifted in his seat. His discomfort was unmistakable now. He redirected the conversation, asked about timelines, deliverables, anything to escape the ugliness Ethan had revealed. But the damage was done. I heard everything. Every dismissal. Every betrayal. Every calculated move Ethan had been making while I trusted him with my life. When the check arrived, I barely tasted dessert. Outside, Mr. Arai bowed slightly, deeper this time. It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Carter, he said in English. I wish you clarity. Clarity. The drive home felt endless. Ethan hummed softly, pleased with himself. That went well, he said. Arai seems impressed. That's good, I replied. My voice sounded distant, even to me. At home, Ethan kissed my cheek absently. I have emails to finish, he said, already walking away. I stood in the bedroom doorway long after he disappeared into his office. Then I closed the door. And I made the first move. I called Lena. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert. Naomi? It's late. I need a lawyer, I said. My voice broke. Right now. There was a pause. Then, okay. Breathe. Start from the beginning. I told her everything. The language. The dinner. The affair. The money. She listened in silence. When I finished, she said one sentence that steadied me. Do not confront him yet. What? I whispered. Not yet, she repeated. We need proof. Fear wrapped around me, but beneath it, something colder emerged. Resolve. That night, lying beside Ethan while he slept peacefully, I stared at the ceiling. He thought I was invisible. He thought I was harmless. He thought I didn't understand. He was wrong. And soon, very soon, he would learn exactly how wrong he was. The most dangerous battles are not fought loudly. They are waged in silence, behind closed doors, beneath ordinary routines that conceal extraordinary intent. By morning, Ethan had already forgotten the dinner, or rather, he had filed it away as another successful step in his ascent. He kissed my forehead, grabbed his briefcase, and left without noticing that I hadn't asked about his day, his meeting, or his plans. That was my first small victory. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to Ethan's life. I was building my own strategy. Lena worked fast. By noon, she had connected me with a forensic accountant named Victor Hale, quiet, meticulous, and allergic to unnecessary words. We met at a neutral cafe far from my neighborhood, the kind of place where no one lingered and no one remembered faces. Victor listened as I outlined what I knew. Joint accounts suddenly restricted, I said. References to offshore funds. Possible shell entities. He nodded once. We'll find them. How long? I asked. Depends on how sloppy he is. I thought of Ethan's confidence. His arrogance. He's sloppy, I said. Victor allowed himself a thin smile. At home, I began my own investigation. I didn't rush. I didn't snoop recklessly. I observed. Ethan had patterns. Predictable ones. Every Wednesday, he stayed late, team alignment, he called it. Every second Friday, he traveled overnight. He kept passwords consistent, modified only slightly. He underestimated me because he had trained himself to believe I wasn't capable of seeing beneath surfaces. While he slept, I accessed his laptop. I didn't search for the affair, not yet. I searched for money. Folders buried under innocuous labels. Financial projections that didn't match our shared statements. Transfers routed through consulting fees and international vendor accounts. It was all there. Hidden, but not well. I photographed everything. Logged dates. Copied files. Sent encrypted backups to Lena. Only then, I looked for Maya. She wasn't hard to find. Maya Chin. Senior Product Strategy. 6 years younger than me. Ivy League degree. Sharp smile. The kind of woman Ethan admired because she reflected the man he believed himself to be. Their messages weren't poetic. They were transactional. Meetings disguised as brainstorming sessions. Complaints about my lack of ambition. Plans postponed because of optics. Optics. I closed the laptop and sat back. My hands didn't shake. That surprised me. What I felt wasn't grief. It was clarity. Over the next 3 weeks, I became the version of myself Ethan expected. Agreeable. Quiet. Supportive. I asked how his day went. I made dinner. I smiled when he spoke. But beneath that surface, I was documenting everything. Victor uncovered 3 offshore accounts. Lena prepared preliminary filings. We timed disclosures carefully, nothing that would alert Ethan prematurely. You need him comfortable, Lena said. Confident. That won't be difficult, I replied. Ethan's confidence bordered on delusion. One evening, he mentioned Maya casually, testing me. She's sharp, he said. Reminds me of you, back when you cared about strategy. I smiled politely. I'm glad you have someone stimulating at work. His eyes flicked toward me, suspicious for half a second. Then he relaxed. He had no idea he was already losing. Ethan announced that Mr. Arai would be visiting again, this time to finalize terms. There will be a formal dinner, he said. At our place. My pulse quickened. When? I asked calmly. Saturday. That gave me 4 days. 4 days to prepare. On Saturday evening, our home transformed into a stage set. Caterers. Floral arrangements. Soft lighting. Everything curated to project stability, success, harmony. Ethan wore confidence like armor. Mr. Arai arrived precisely on time. This time I spoke. In Japanese. Fluently. I greeted him properly. Formally. With respect. The room changed instantly. Ethan froze. Just for a fraction of a second, but I saw it. Mr. Arai's eyes widened. Then he smiled. Not politely. Genuinely. You speak Japanese, he said. Yes, I replied. Quite well. Silence stretched between us. Ethan laughed awkwardly. She's been studying a bit. A bit? Mr. Arai repeated softly. I met Ethan's gaze. I understood everything at dinner, I said evenly. Including what you said about me. The air left his lungs. His face drained of color. Mr. Arai stood slowly. I believe, he said calmly, that this partnership will require reconsideration. Ethan stammered. This is a misunderstanding. No, Mr. Arai interrupted. It is clarity. He bowed to me. Then he left. Ethan rounded on me, rage erupting. You sabotaged me, he hissed. I didn't raise my voice. You sabotaged yourself. I handed him a folder. Bank records. Messages. Transfers. You moved joint funds without disclosure, I said. Committed financial infidelity and legal fraud. Lena will be filing Monday. His mouth opened. Closed. For the first time, he looked afraid. You don't control this anymore, I said quietly. He stared at me like a stranger. Because I was. That night, Ethan slept in the guest room. I slept peacefully for the first time in years. Ethan underestimated silence. He thought silence meant weakness, retreat, fear. He had no idea that silence had been my training ground. The morning after Mr. Arai walked out of our house, Ethan tried to reclaim control the only way he knew how, through certainty. Through dominance. Through pretending nothing had changed. He woke early, showered, dressed in one of his tailored suits, and came into the kitchen as if it were any other day. You embarrassed me last night, he said, pouring coffee. His voice was measured, professional, like he was addressing a subordinate. I didn't look up. You interfered with my career, he continued. That deal was worth millions. I took my time stirring my tea. You interfered with our marriage, I said calmly. For years. He scoffed. You're overreacting. There it was. The phrase men like Ethan used when the truth finally cornered them. I provided for you, he snapped. Everything you have exists because of me. I finally met his eyes. No, I said. Everything you have exists because I stood behind you while you built it. His jaw tightened. You think speaking Japanese gives you power? He said coldly. You're still the same woman you were yesterday. I smiled. That's where you're wrong. By Monday morning, Lena had filed. The injunction froze Ethan's accounts before he even realized what was happening. Victor's documentation was airtight: transaction trails, shell accounts, misappropriated joint assets. Ethan arrived home that evening pale, shaken. They froze my accounts, he said. My lawyer says this could get ugly. I imagine it will, I replied. That was the night he begged. Not dramatically. Not emotionally. Strategically. He promised therapy. Transparency. Change. He blamed stress. Pressure. Ambition. He blamed Maya. She meant nothing, he said. You're my wife. I watched him carefully. And I realized something important. Ethan didn't love me. He loved what I made possible. I don't want revenge, I said quietly. I want my life. You can't do this alone, he warned. You need me. I stood. No, I said. You needed me. Past tense. The divorce proceedings were brutal, but brief. Mr. Arai formally withdrew his company from Ethan's division. Internal investigations followed. Quiet ones. The kind that didn't make headlines, but ended careers. Maya transferred departments. Ethan resigned before he could be terminated. He moved into a furnished apartment across town. Smaller. Temporary. Unimpressive. For the first time since our marriage began, I lived alone. And I flourished. 6 months later, I stood in a small recording studio. A microphone hovered in front of me. Headphones settled over my ears. The producer gave me a thumbs up. I took a breath. And I began to speak. In Japanese. Then English. Then both intertwined. I had launched a podcast about communication, power, and the languages we use to hide truth from others and from ourselves. It took off faster than anyone expected. Turns out, people are starving for stories about quiet strength. About listening. About reclaiming voice. One evening, long after the divorce was finalized, I received a message. From Ethan. Just one sentence. I never knew you. I stared at the screen. Then I deleted it. Because he was right. He never knew me. And that was his greatest failure. Now, when I sit down to dinner alone or with friends, I listen carefully. Not just to words, but to what hides beneath them. Because power doesn't always belong to the loudest voice. Sometimes, it belongs to the one who understands the language no one else thinks she speaks.